Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, that'd be me. Got something stuck between my teeth. It's driving me crazy. That was not something I needed to share, was it? What we got here? Let's start easy. 9th day of August, 2023. Is a Wednesday. Sun shining. Now, what the hell to do with this space staring blankly in front of me? Well, I think I got something. I do. I have it. Wait. I never like to just leap right in. You know, those bumper stickers that said, baby on board. Well, they still do. You still see them. Baby on board. And my God, they've been around now for 30, 35, maybe 40 years. I don't know. I do remember the first time I saw one. I thought, and your point is? It was, I mean, I didn't quite, I have to tell you, I still don't quite get it. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the idea was to inform the people behind you not to slam into your car because they might harm or kill your baby. And I'm thinking, I don't know that sign you've appended there to your car is going to alter anybody's behavior. I mean, when you saw a sign, baby on board, were you like more? Did you give that car wider berth? Did you hang back? Were you just more alert? My God, there's a baby in that car. So I never really got it. And I mean, I don't know about you, but the odds are most of us are still alive, and our parents never, because of our age probably, but also because of our parents maybe not just being the type to put a sign saying baby on board on your car. I don't get it. Never did. Haven't gotten annoyed by it in a long time, but it annoyed me. I mean, I don't know about you. Sometimes you got, what if it's a 3-year-old on board? Why are there signs like that? Like a 3-year-old's life isn't somehow more important? I never understood it. And then I thought, is it a kind of braggadocio? Like you just had your first baby and want people to know it? Hey, I got a baby on board. So I don't. I might be making too much of a thing, and it shows how easily I am annoyed. I mean, it's not a huge annoyance. It's more more like that. I mean, if I can verbalize it, it's like, oh, geez. So, baby on board, didn't get. For that matter, I don't get bumper stickers much at all. It is rare that I see one that appeals to me or makes me laugh, or I think, I mean, in order for somebody to put something like that on your car, they are willing to announce themselves to the world and perfect strangers, something, I guess, that they might think of as central to them or their character or their what they perceive as important or what they really like, or I don't know. Why would you? I just don't get any of why you would do that. I can see the people putting signs up who quite clearly put them on their cars to annoy other people, or to just express, like, back off, I'm a badass kind of thing. Okay. That actually might work better for keeping people away from your car than baby on board. I don't know. So actually, what brought this to mind was, in my neighborhood, when I moved into this neighborhood, I was like the youngest person on the block. I mean, everybody else in all the houses around here had been in those houses for decades and decades and decades. They'd raised families. The children were gone. If you ever saw a young kid, it was some grandchild from someplace. So it's odd when you stay in one place for a long time to see people come and go. I mean, obviously, a lot of those old people that were here when I moved in, well, they're now dead. I'm thinking around. A lot of them are dead. I am now one of the oldest people on the block. And the houses all around me are populated by young couples with children. And in some cases, very young children. But you start with hearing babies crying, and then you hear little toddlers laughing and playing and crying. And then little by little, when you stay in one place, you see these kids that you may or may not really know that well. And all of a sudden they've got acne. And you don't know, I don't know, they're teenagers. It's mind blowing because you don't notice, what am I saying here? Here's what I'm saying. I am trying to get back to things on the back of cars. So what I have noticed is that number of cars are in the neighborhood now have bumper stickers that say, I don't know if I have this exactly right, but you've probably seen them. Please be patient. Student driver. Have you seen those? Because I've seen a lot of them. There's one house that has 2 cars, and both cars have please be patient, student driver on them, because I guess their student driver kids might be driving either vehicle. But it shows you that, in fact, when a car has be patient, student driver, there might not be a student driver there. And here's how I think I know that. I happened to be on the Parkway the other day, and a car, people would tell you, I'm a very good driver, but I'm fast. And some car came just barreling past me and then sort of turned right, almost into my lane. I mean, it was done in a way that there was no accident was going to happen, but it was like, hey, wow, what? Relax here. And I was stunned to see it had that be patient student driver. And that's when it occurred to me. Well, it occurred to me, first of all, I hope to hell that wasn't a student driver. And my guess was it wasn't. It was the student driver parent driving the car with the bumper sticker on it. Anyway, all I'm saying is the please be patient student driver thing, again, is relatively meaningless. I don't know what it means. What does that mean? Don't honk at me. Don't give me the finger. I mean, I'm not a student driver, and I'm not a baby on board, and I get honked on and given the finger. So, I mean, again, I think it's these overly protective generation of parents, the same people who had baby on board stickers now have please be patient student driver, right? Those have to be the same people. So all of that I started with, my annoyance at baby on board from decades and decades ago, has now been recharged in some way by seeing these please be patient student driver things. I don't know. Okay, so that's what I came up with to talk about something that wasn't potentially life-shattering. So the good news is, and we did see it. You saw it, and I saw it coming, but still it had to happen, and that was the vote in Ohio yesterday. These Republicans, as Susan and I were saying, they are overreaching, and they're going to get themselves burned. Why? I guess it's because when you get power, and in these cases where these Republicans control everything in their state, the power is, in fact, corrupting. And also, I think, makes you stupid. It makes you overreach because you think you're untouchable. The hubris, the arrogance, the entitlement, I don't know, takes over. And the reality that they know that even though they hold all this power, they really are a minority party. And we all know it, and they know it. And the only way they can maintain their power is to do exactly what they accuse, of course, the other side of doing, which is rigging elections. Or if you get really desperate, sending a mob to the Capitol and threatening to hang your vice president. So that was another indication that the Republicans, God bless them, are tone deaf. And it's not that they're tone deaf. They really do. They know that the public doesn't agree with a lot of what they're selling and pushing and mandating. They know that. But they have an extraordinary disdain for the people. They think they're too lazy to vote. They think they aren't paying attention, that they don't get it. And they have this capacity then to base their strategies on a kind of contempt for the electorate that is coming back to bite them, because nobody likes being viewed in that kind of condescending, contemptuous manner that clearly Republicans in power have. Let me see a little about what I saw about this that is of perhaps any interest to you, other than what I've said. it looks like, the full counting isn't in, but I mean, it's funny. It could be that the voters that defeated this measure that was intended to make sure that the constitutional amendment providing abortion access to women in Ohio in the state constitution, would have to get 60 votes. It appears that this Ohio vote yesterday almost reached the 60 vote level, 60% level. And since Roe has been overturned, which has been the wet dream of Republicans ever since it was handed down by the court half century ago, the fact is that ever since they've won, as you know, in every state where the voters had a chance to be heard about abortion access, they said in no uncertain terms, we want it. Get out of our doctor's offices. Get out of our bedrooms. The abortion rights position has won in all 6 states since Roe that had ballot measures available to the voters to be heard from. So it's fun, and these are often red states. So what's interesting is the whole idea of Dobbs was to return this back to the states where the people will decide. And it turns out even in the red states, the people are not behind the Republican Party on this issue, not one bit. And in fact, energizingly so. So it's quite likely that given November, when Ohio voters do go to the polls to vote for abortion rights and needing only a simple majority, that they will join the other states that have already done so. And they include Kansas, a red state, Kentucky, a red state, Montana, a red state. Michigan is another. It was a purple state leaning red until the Republicans started clearly, blatantly trying to steal elections. And then, lo and behold, Michigan's looking increasingly like a very blue state. So all this is good for, it looks good for Democrats. Democrats this year alone have overperformed even the good results in the 2020 election, the midterm. Democrats have overperformed in a lot of special elections this year by an average of more than 7 points. And that continues a trend that began the minute Roe was overturned by the Supreme Court. So Republicans are, and here's the good news too. The odd thing about Ohio is Senator Sherrod Brown, because he is a true liberal Democrat. And he wins, and he wins, and he does not pander to him. He's a good old working class Democrat. The guy who is running against him, or intends to, is the guy who was behind this mucked up effort yesterday, the Ohio Secretary of State. So he's damaged Sherrod Brown's likely opponent is damaged. And then you got this SOB gazillionaire Richard Uihlein, who gives money to all of the causes that make your skin crawl. He actually, and the groups that, you know, are behind these things always have these ridiculous names, right? The group behind this Ohio failed effort was called Protect Our Constitution. Yeah, protect our Constitution by denying women civil rights. Protect our Constitution. And Uihlein, who doesn't live in Ohio, but he gives to these kinds of things, he put 4 million, I guess nearly 4 million, almost all the money they had in their war chest, to make sure this thing passed. So he's out 4 mil, but I suspect with the money he has, that doesn't exactly harm him much. So it turns out that these times that you know, well, okay, so the good news is the voters not only don't like what the Supreme Court did in overturning Roe, the voters don't like what the Republican Party is doing in their states, trying to impede their rightful access to be heard through votes. So, as good. E.J. Dionne said it pretty well. When you do everything, he said, everything you can to rig an election and you still lose, you have a problem. And that is what we're seeing over and over again. Donald Trump and his co-defendants tried it, and they still lost, and they got big problems, right? And it happens in all of these instances. So it's fascinating that, like, in Ohio, the voters in Ohio voted for Donald Trump by 8 points. And yet, look at where the voters were yesterday. So I just, you know, and Ohio is a prime example, as is Wisconsin, of states that came under total Republican control and then decided to rig the rest of the elections, all future elections, mostly through gerrymandering. And Ohio, through gerrymandering, Republicans control 70% of their state legislature in both houses. 70%. Democrats have only 30%, not even a third of the seats in the Ohio legislature. And yet, over the past 10 years, in all the statewide elections for governor, for the Supreme Court, for all the stuff, in statewide elections, Republicans get 54%. So they have, on average, a little over 50% of the voters, usually, and yet they control 70% of the legislature. And this is what happens when you gerrymander to foil the will of the people, of often the majority as well. Says here the laughable sneakiness of Ohio Republicans should force a national debate over efforts of the Republicans to undercut majority rule in this country. If there's a Republican playbook, the number one play right now is to make sure the people lose power, to take decision making out of the hands of the people, out of the hands of the popular majority. Republicans are trying to get rid of referenda all over the place, because that is sort of a referendum by its very nature is sort of direct democratic control. So I don't know. Dion's last sentence or last paragraph says this. So when Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the majority in striking down Roe, he was unintentionally prophetic, because he wrote this: women are not without electoral or political power. And he emphasized that the court was returning the authority over abortion law, quote, to the people and their elected representatives. Yeah. Well, Sam, that's what you did. You and Clarence and all the others. And by turning out in large numbers, Ohio, in Kansas, in Kentucky, in Michigan, in all these other states, the people, especially women, took that political power and their authority seriously. So that's a good news. Oh, here's some other good news. The warden of the Allegheny County Jail will be gone in a month. Orlando Harper. His tenure has seen nothing but a horror show at that in that building. Lives ruined, lives cost. Orlando Harper was about as transparent a civil servant. Well, he was not. Good analogy there. So that's another good piece of news. Also, just want to note this, that you'll recall that I had gotten that threatening email from this white nationalist SOB who is behind like the anti-Semitic flyers that come out all over, and he's and the FBI's onto him, the cops are onto him, and he's watched constantly. But in the email he had sent me, he said that when the Bowers trial was over, he was going to use Freedom of Information Act to ascertain the identities of the jurors. Obviously a threat that if they convicted and sentenced him to death, which they did, that they would be in jeopardy themselves. So I just want to point out, and don't know if you know, that Judge Colville, who had put a the identities of the jury under seal while the trial was going on has now made clear that the identities of those jurors will remain under seal permanently. And he said this is in the best interests of justice. He said, in a case such as this, in which the shooter killed 11 worshipers because of a hatred of Jews, there is a genuine risk of jurors receiving harassing or threatening communications, and more so, from improperly motivated members of the public, is what Judge Colville said. And he said, because we're aware that white supremacy and anti-Semitism is a true problem, a domestic terror problem in this country, that might invite untoward juror contact, he said those names of this jury, even though they are usually public, will remain sealed because the nature of this case is such that this presumption of openness is overcome by the potential of danger to the jurors. So that's good news. And you damn well know that'll have to happen for every jury dealing with all of these Trump indictments. And I understand next week we're likely to get another one. Maybe. I don't know. The Atlanta thing is going to the grand jury. They're about to hear all the evidence that has been accumulated about Trump's efforts to overturn the vote in Georgia. And we've all heard the most damning evidence of all being, hey, all I need is, would you just please find me this many votes? All I need. And I forgot who I heard say it, but, you know, the way elections work is you don't find votes. You count. This is something that's lost on Republicans. So apparently that might come as early as next week. Good God Almighty. And then one more thing that I want to get back to, because Susan had mentioned something about in Florida, how the parents are leaving. They're leaving to protect the lives and health of their trans and children. And they're leaving because they want to be able to make sure their children are given a true education. Because Florida, under DeSantis, has mandated that certain things simply cannot be taught. In many cases, the truth, cannot be taught. The truth is just not age appropriate. And it might make somebody feel bad, and you can't do that, apparently. It's so interesting. I don't think of Republicans as, empathetic types. They're not called bleeding hearts. We're called bleeding hearts. But it's interesting how they've become so concerned of late about hurting some people's feelings. And I underscore some people's feelings. And that so concerned are they that they actually destroy longstanding curricula standards so that little white children apparently don't have to hear that their ancestors thought of the ancestors of their little black classmates as property. So Susan had said that they had stopped teaching AP psychology because the state had warned that the AP psychology course put out by this whatever they are, the school, what do they call that thing? Yeah, the College Board had was full of stuff that Florida has deemed stuff you can't teach, and the College Board said, all right, fine and dandy. The course is effectively banned, and we're not going to recognize if you don't teach it in toto, if you're just pulling whole things out of it, we're not going to give credit to. So it turns out somebody tried to walk that back, which is what I told Susan. I think they walked that back. But it turns out that not really. And the Washington Post went looking, and they asked there are 11 districts, school districts, and they're the largest school districts in Florida are all dropping the teaching of advanced placement psychology because they're fearful that their teachers who teach it could find themselves in violation of the law. Now, the thing I guess that's wrong, what would psychology? It's a psychology course. So what would be wrong? The objectionable, what was considered objectionable material is the stuff about sexual orientation and gender. Now imagine teaching an AP psychology course. You're teaching teenagers, older teenagers heading to college. And they are still saying in Florida that to teach them about sexual orientation and gender, as if there's nothing to teach there, are inappropriate. So they're just dropping it. Here's a statement from one. In essence, if we don't teach all of the content, our students are not going to receive AP credit, according to the College Boards. But if we do teach all the content, our instructors will be violating the law of Florida. Therefore, we will not be offering AP psychology at any of our high schools this year. It has been an incredibly popular class in the past, taught by Florida high schools for 30 years. And there were thousands of students in 560 schools who were set to take the class this fall. Another reason why people are leaving this state. And then there's this. Oh my God. You cannot make this stuff up. What have we become? I mean, talk about time travel. What do you mean my connection's not private? Screw you. Sorry, I can't get to it. This is about another district in Florida that, hang on, that has decided that not only is AP psychology a bridge too far, but Shakespeare, I kid you not. English teachers in Hillsborough County are preparing their school lessons plans. Excuse me. With only excerpts from William Shakespeare's works. They will be assigned excerpts from Macbeth or Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. But if they want to read the entire play, they are going to have to, find that on their own. And I suppose maybe at this point their high school library wouldn't let them have it, right? They call it the benchmark for excellent student thinking. Oh my God. We need to make sure our students are prepared with enough material during the year so that they will be prepared for the assessments. There are ways that students can read these works in their entirety, the district official said. If a student could obtain a copy of one of the books or plays, perhaps with the help of their parents, they can do so. But teachers are advised during class, stay with the approved guidelines, which call only for excerpts. And if they don't, they might have to defend themselves against parental complaint or a disciplinary case. Ladies and gentlemen, teaching Shakespeare. Oh my God. Is this the definition of irony? That Zoom is insisting that its employees come back to work at the office? Not 3 days at least a week. Zoom! I mean, Zoom, which allowed all of us to stay in place and still meet. There's something pretty dang funny about Zoom telling its employees to get back to the office. They have to go there at least twice a week if they live within 50 miles of an office. Yeah. So, somebody, it says here, has a meme out that says irony can be pretty ironic. Apparently Zoom is, it's taking a little bit of a financial hit because people are not given, its growth was really, quick and steep during the pandemic, where I don't know about you, I didn't, never heard of it, Zoom. And now it's a part of our vocabulary in a way that it had not been. But since the pandemic, Zoom has laid off 15% of its staff. So the pandemic made it, and the pandemic is, disappointing it now. Hey, one thing I wanted to, I got her picture here to remind me. I happened this weekend to watch some of Simone Biles' return to gymnastic competition. She is just, and I think a lot of athletes agree. If you were making a list of the greatest athletes, taking in all sports, the real GOATs, right? I think she makes the list, hands down. She's just amazing. And other gymnasts just look at her in awe, including other gold medal winning gymnasts look at her in awe. So she'd been off for over 2 years. And then she really wasn't thinking about going back. And then she did start kind of thinking, I better get in shape. So she started just working out in the gym. And the more she worked out, the more, I guess, she got, she remembered what she loved about it. And then she really started working. And then next thing you know, bango, she's back. And she hadn't competed in over 2 years, and she blew the competition away. I mean, and the competition was the best. She blew them away. And she's just warming up. But here's what drove me crazy while I was trying to enjoy watching these athletes do these amazing things. They're wearing a leotard that covers only half of their backside. They're lovely. They're lovely rear ends. The muscular, bounteous, global woof of them is right there to be enjoyed by one and all. And I have to tell you, as somebody who's worn a leotard and also worn something that sort of does what their strangely shaped leotards do, which is expose half your butt. It essentially turns into a thong almost. It would not. I kept thinking, does this have anything to do with their ability to perform these things they do? And I thought, no way. The men who compete in gymnastics, you don't see their butts. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. And I'm really wondering why Simone and the others don't say, I'm not wearing this anymore. It detracts from my athleticism and makes me into an object, makes my body into something to be ogled. It is not in any way conducive to my performance. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, wait a minute, it's not just the gymnasts. Have you seen what track women wear now? They're like running in friggin' bikinis. Why not just run naked, okay? Just stop the pretense and run naked. Beach volleyball at least has some where you can say, well, it's on a beach. Of course we're wearing bikinis. But that too, totally gratuitous. We've come a long way, baby. But that this continues. is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And I mean, you don't have to, you don't have to be a brilliant debater to point out that obviously this can only have one reason. And it is the sexualization of women. It has nothing to do with the sport, because men doing the exact same sports do not wear such revealing outfits. How is this still happening? And I'm going to blame the women, the athletes who allow it, because if they said we ain't doing it, it's over. Simone Biles by herself could stop it, because she generates tons of money. And I suppose the guys who rake in all that money think that people will only watch if they can see all these beautiful, muscular female buttocks. But that's not true. We watch because of their astonishing athleticism. I see that all of a sudden this week there's all this talk about the stuff that women wear in tennis, and the mandated thing that it had to be white, blah blah blah, and it's all this stuff about menstruation and an athlete, a female athlete with her period, having to wear white while she's doing all this exertion and stuff, is somewhere in the back of her head, her focus might be every other millisecond. Oh God, I hope I'm not showing. So everybody's patting everybody else on the back that they're now going to allow women to wear what? Dark underwear? I'm so sick of this. And the incredible nail-like pace of change. I mean, men are walking around in skirts now. But women still have to compete at the Olympics half naked. Just incredible. And I'm sure, where did I see it? I read something. I'm sorry, my problem is I read so damn much and then I don't necessarily note what it is I've read. But yeah. Now, I think in the last Olympics that there were some women who wore like tights, the leggings, and thus deprived the oglers of seeing their buttocks. And I really think that whatever the men are wearing should show everybody what is, I suppose, do men willingly show their butts? I mean, I'm trying to think of an instance in which men compete, in which they compete like in thongs. Do they? Ever? So let's see. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm sorry. All of a sudden, I've lost all my stuff. Did you see this? I know, like, these big stories are the white people beating up the black captain, and then another the just sort of melee that people behaving badly. It's increasingly, it seems that the news makes use of viral video because we're fascinated by seeing inappropriate behavior. So that if you're on social media, I mean, the people now, if somebody starts ranting in a store, somebody is bound to pull out their phone and start recording it. And then these things end up on social media. And then often the mob forms and people are asked, does anyone know the identity of this son of a bitch, this racist? And inevitably they are identified, and then they often lose their jobs, right? Stuff like that. Is that kind of justice? Is that good, or is that troublesome? I'm of two minds. I can't quite figure it out. The app Nextdoor is becoming a lot like that, so that people with their little spy doorbells are showing pictures of people walking past their houses and saying, I saw this guy looking in car windows. Or this guy, he was driving, the truck said this, and he screamed a profanity at me, blah, blah, blah. Who is this? And I mean, the back and forth that goes on. I sort of like the idea that people who are prone to behaving badly might, in the back of their heads, be deterred because somebody could shoot this and I could be out of a job. But I don't think that will be what happens. My God, we had a death penalty. That was supposed to deter people. It didn't. Deterrence is really rough, I think, for people who are prone to be antisocial in their behavior. Also, some of these people, the ranters and ravers in stores, are often, I would imagine, mentally ill. And I don't know that the right way to handle them is public shaming. I don't know. But we're here now, and that's the way it is. And I suppose if I found myself in a certain situation where I saw something going on that I thought was outrageous and or illegal, I'm going to whip out my phone and add to the cacophony that we now live in. I just don't know. There's that. All righty, guys, that's it for me for today. Got a ton of things to do today. I got to get on with it. So thank you very much. If in fact you were there, and even if you aren't, God bless you. And I'll be back tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.